I played every Alien and Predator game ever made, taking us on a journey through two of the biggest horror franchises of all time, starting all the way back in 1982 with Alien. And if similar to me, you weren't around during this time, you will most likely have zero knowledge of this game, just like I had. Booting it up, I really didn't know what to expect. I mean, I know it's a game released in the 80s, so I wasn't really expecting anything too groundbreaking, but a Pac-Man clone would have been the last thing I'd expect this game to be. Alien, one of, if not the greatest sci-fi horrors of all time, and Pac-Man. It's just not really the mix I would have expected, but the way the developers disguised this pretty obvious Pac-Man clone into an Alien game is actually kinda genius. You see the map here? That's the Nostromo. Now get rid of the ghosts for xenomorphs and boom, sell that bad boy for $40, which if we adjust for inflation is a whopping $150 in 2026. And was it worth that money? Probably not. The game, it was fine. I mean, it's Pac-Man. It's kind of one of the only games that is timeless, and even then the developers made the AI more challenging, so there were times where a xenomorph was right behind me and yeah, it got a little butt clench out of me, so I'll give it a nice little 6 out of 10. Nothing too crazy, but it's pretty fun. Alien, released in 1984 for the Commodore 64 and ZX Spectrum, and from a pretty basic Pac-Man clone to a game that deserves its own page in the history books. As if my research is correct, this is one of the first survival horror games ever. It's like the grandfather of games like Alien Isolation. Without this, there's a high chance that Alien Isolation would never be made. Alien is a pretty streamlined game with the main objective being to eliminate the alien and ensure as many crew members survive as possible, which seems pretty easy, but no, this task was like a tattoo artist drawing a straight line while 8 shots deep. Now, I'm way beyond this generation of gaming and my experience with these type of games is very little, so it did get confusing, but I was really trying my best to really understand this game, and after a few failed attempts, it really did click, and I never think that an 8-bit game could ever build this much atmosphere and have the amount of personality that this game did. From the crew members having emotional statuses, starting out as confident and after a few deaths turn into broken, showing you the impact the xenomorph is having on everyone, to Jonesy the cat being able to set off false alarms, and one of my favorite aspects of the game being the betrayer feature, where one member is randomly chosen at the start of the game to become the android betrayer like the movie, which low-key had me side-eyeing every single crew member, turning this into a straight-up game of Among Us. But yeah, it took a while, but when this game finally clicked for me, I started to really appreciate it. Not just for the game that it is, but for setting the stage for all the other games that came after it. So for that, I'll have to give this game a 7 out of 10. Alien, the computer game, released in 1986 and 1987, two release dates for two separate games with the exact same name, one being released in the UK and Europe, and the other being an American release. And even though they had the exact same name, they were possibly the most different games ever. It's so wild to me that back in the 80s and 90s, this was a pretty common thing. Now, they really are very different games, but I really don't think I could pick a favorite out of them. The UK version was a very early first-person shooter taking place in a massive maze with over 200 rooms. Now, I'm not sure if this is normal for an 80s game, but while playing, the amount of different rooms to explore felt kind of huge. Please just let me know if that was a normal size map for the time this game came out, but apart from the massive map, the rest of the game didn't really blow me away. With the game becoming really repetitive, you just go through different rooms and shoot aliens. It's pretty straightforward. And now on to the American version. The FPS gameplay is thrown away, and instead we get 6 different mini games, from flying a dropship to defending the operations room, all coming together in a final battle with the Queen. Now there is this little narrative adventure kind of film that connects all the mini games together, where you control a bunch of Marines, and I'm not gonna lie, this part was probably my favorite. There's a whole resource management system here where you having to keep an eye on how much ammo each Marine has, and even stamina comes into play. Now, like I said, I'd put these two games on a very similar level, so I'll just give them both a 6 out of 10. Both have a lot going for them, but just not my type of games. Aliens, Alien 2, released in 1987, and is a Japanese exclusive, which probably explains the weird name, and was actually developed by Squaresoft, the same developers of Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger. But out of all the games I've played so far, this is one of the most familiar to me. Now, I've obviously never played this before this video, but as it's a side-scroller, and I've played a countless amount of side-scrollers in my lifetime, it felt kind of nice to play a game that I didn't have to sit there and really lock in to figure it out. As side-scrollers go, this is as basic as it gets, with the gameplay consisting of simple platforming and a few power-ups scattered around the place to give you a little boost. There were a few times where I found the game kind of frustrating, where the movement felt really floaty difficulty and the weird puzzles added in just ended up being kind of annoying. It's not a bad game. Compared to a few games coming up, this one seems like a masterpiece, but I'll have to give it a 6 out of 10. Predator. Released in 1987 and is the first Predator game in the video and the first Predator game ever made. And there were actually multiple different versions of this game released, but the main two were for the NES and Commodore 64, with the Commodore 64 version later being ported to the Atari and getting a little enhanced. We controlled Dutch, possibly the coolest action star of all time, and the creator of the cleanest handshake in human history. Bitch. But similar to the movie, the game is set in a Central American jungle where we fight, you probably guessed it, a predator. Obviously, it's 1987, so we are once again back with the side-scrolling, and once again, it wasn't great. Now, I love Predator, especially the first one, but this, what you're seeing on your screen right now, could be a game based on anything. It just doesn't give me the vibes of the original film. While I was getting ready to play this game, I was imagining what it could be. A lush green 8-bit side-scroller battling monster predators. But then as soon as I started playing, I was just let down. Like I said, there's nothing here that screams Predator to me, apart from the Predator. But then even the Predator only shows up on these weird big mode levels where we finally get to fight him. The largest chunk of this game is just you running around dodging what I can only see to be some type of virus. I don't know what that is. And killing these weird alien looking things and random soldiers. The gameplay is clunky, the level design is awful, invisible death pits, confusing layouts. The NES version of this game was just awful. Now, the other version that released was more like what I was expecting. You see this? The green, the jungle, screams Predator. Even the way the Predator was added was better. So you fight through the jungle, killing random soldiers, and you'll see the Predator blaster slowly approach you, and you have to get out the way or you'll die. It just really gives the feeling of being hunted by one of these monsters. Overall, I 100% preferred the Commodore 64 version. The NES can get a 2 out of 10, and the Commodore can get a nice little 7. It's not bad. Aliens, released in 1990 for arcade machines and never actually got a port to home consoles, which isn't the usual for these type of games. Usually you'll see an arcade game release and 2 years later it'll pop out on home consoles, but not this one, which is a disgrace. This game is so fucking good, with the art style just being absolutely stunning. The bright colors just scream 90s. It was developed by Konami, who around this time were kind of like the kings of arcade games, from TMNT to The Simpsons to, of course, Contra. So the quality in this game is peak. Now, of course, it does have its issues, but none of them are with the gameplay or how fun the game was, but mostly with the lore. They randomly changed Ripley's hair to blonde and added these weird space aliens. But listen, this game is so much fun that I did not care one bit about the lore accuracy. It's once again a side-scroller, but finally a well-done one. The movement and combat just feels quick and sharp, all building up to the final battle with the Queen using the power loader. It was just peak. That's all I can say. This game was just peak. So far, this is easily the best game, and it's really not even close. I had so much fun here. 8 out of 10. Such a good game. Predator 2. Again, we have 2 games released with the exact same name, but being completely different. They were released 2 years apart, with the first being released on the Commodore 64, PC, and a whole bunch of other different consoles, and the second being released on the Master System, Game Gear, and Mega Drive. And once again, they are completely different, with the Predator 2 that released first being a rail shooter, with us playing as Mike Harrigan and fighting a bunch of enemies, from gang members to the city hunter himself. It's a really bare bones game that really belongs in an arcade. This in the arcade with those gun machines would have been a lot more fun than the home console version. Not that it was awful, but it just really wasn't for me. 4 out of 10. And then on to the 1992 release, which also had 2 different versions. Yeah, this is getting really confusing. If you're confused, just imagine how I feel trying to stay on top of all these games. But Predator 2 on the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive was an isometric shooter where once again we take control of Mike and you probably guessed it, blast our way through levels based on the movie, dealing with gang members and the Predator. Now this version had a lot more going for it than the rail shooter. I was a huge fan in the way they used the Predator, with it being a final boss for most missions, but also having this timer feature where if you take too long to do certain objectives, the Predator will show up and just kill you. It just really added to the pressure to just get a move on. So yeah, the Genesis and Mega Drive versions were actually pretty good, so I'll give them a 7 out of 10. And now on to the last Predator 2 game. Released for the Master System and Game Gear, and is a somewhat side-scroller where you just blast our way through the alleys and rooftops, killing everything in our path. Again, similar to a lot of the other Predator 2 games, this one was pretty fun. It's not a masterpiece, but for an hour or two, it kept me entertained, so 6 out of 10. Alien 3, released in 1992, and once again had a bunch of different versions released, from the Commodore 64 to the NES to the Game Gear. But luckily, this is one of the last times this amount of different games gets released for different consoles, so thankfully, I won't have to deal with this anymore. So let's start out with the Commodore 64 version that released first, and was actually the same game for the Genesis, Mega Drive, Master System, and Game Gear. Now, if any of this is wrong, and you're currently typing out a hate comment telling me how dumb I am, just know that I am trying my very best to stay on top of all these games. In videos like these with so many games, it gets really difficult, especially when games with the same name get released that are completely different. So just refrain from hating me and just know that I'm trying. But yeah, the first version that released on the Commodore 64 and those other consoles is mostly known as the main version of this game, where we take up the role of Ripley and run and gun our way through this massive maze. And for the first time in an Alien game, we get what would later become a really iconic tool with a motion tracker that we use to find objectives and just overall help us through the game. Now, this is actually the first game I found kind of difficult, not due to enemies or the combat, but the damn timer. You've got to do pretty much every objective in each level before the timer runs out, and like I said, the map is a literal maze made up of vents and small corridors. It's so easy for you to get lost in. Now, overall, if you're a fan of Alien 3, you'll probably enjoy this game, but the timer was just kind of annoying and really threw me off, so I'll give it a bang average 5 out of 10. And now on to the last, or so you might think, version of this game, the NES. It has a lot of similarities to the other version, with a maze-like map and the main objective being to find all the prisoners on each level and escape before the timer runs out. Both of these games were very similar, so I'm not going to dwell on them for too long, so I'll give them the same rating of a 5 out of 10. Alien vs Predator, the first showdown of these two iconic movie franchises, released in 1993. And even though this game is called Alien vs Predator, you only get to actually play as the Predator, which seems so odd to me. It's kind of like if Twilight made a Team Edward versus Team Jacob game, and I don't get to be the cool wolf. What's the point? But the game is essentially a beat-em-up where you just beat the hell out of every xenomorph you see through a bunch of different locations, from jungles to cities and even an alien hive. Now, as beat-em-up goes, this one wasn't the most in-depth. You'll end up just spamming the same attack for 80% of the game, with a slide attack being more overpowered than pre-nerf Sword of the Night and Flame. I'm not even joking when I say this. You can spam this single attack and beat the game in an hour flat. I have never played a game where a move is this overpowered. They literally cannot touch me. But for this being the first game where we finally see these two battle each other, it was pretty cool, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Alien 3 for Game Boy Advance, released also in 1993, and you thought we were done with Alien, huh? Yeah. Nowhere near. But unlike the other Alien 3 games that were somewhat enjoyable, this one was actual dog shit. Literally everything can kill you in this game. Touch one thing you're not meant to, and this weird guy shows up staring at you. Like, what the fuck are you looking at, mate? It felt like a Dumb Ways to Die spin-off game. It was just, I just really didn't like this one. 1 out of 10. Alien 3, released in 1993 for the SNES, and yeah, we're still not done with Alien 3. And even though this game has the same name as the other Alien 3s, this is easily my favorite. Can we just get a round of applause for the SNES, please? The graphics boost for these generations is something you take for granted until it's right in front of you. But the SNES version looked so damn good. Gameplay also, in my opinion, was a lot funner and just more intuitive. Now, the objectives are the same, so you will find yourself doing the same shit you did in the other versions. But due to the graphics and the gameplay, I just preferred this version a lot more, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Alien vs Predator, the last of his clan, released once again in 1993, and so far has the coolest story in any of these games. We play as the last surviving Predator, seeking out revenge for his fallen brothers after a hunt goes wrong and they get overrun by an infestation of xenomorphs. Like, how fucking badass is that story? Like, how the hell did they come up with that? The gameplay, though, is it's what you'd expect from a Game Boy game, with it being an action platformer. Not that it's bad. I actually had a lot of fun with this game, especially using all the Predator weapons, from the shoulder cannon to the wrist blade. This game had everything. It was actually pretty good and just blows the other attempt of an Alien vs Predator game straight out of the water. So I'll give AVP, The Last of Its Clan, a nice little 7 out of 10. It was actually pretty good. Alien Free, The Gun. Yep, another damn Alien Free game. I'm honestly kind of mind blown by the amount they milked this movie. But unlike the other games where the only reason they made them different was to sell more copies for different consoles, this one kind of makes sense as it's an arcade game. So I'll give it some slack, but essentially, you remember those arcade machines with the guns? That's what this game was. It's a rail shooter where you just blast the hell out of some xenomorphs. Now, if I was able to play this game on the actual arcade machine, I feel like I would have had a lot more fun than I did playing at home, which is pretty obvious. So just for that, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Okay, so we are slowly but surely making a dent for these games. So how about we take a small break? You pause, go get some snacks, make sure you're hydrated, and while you're doing that, hit the video with a little like and subscribe to the channel. Now, that was shameless, but it does help a lot. And now we can continue. Alien vs Predator, the arcade game, released in 1994, and so far, this is easily the best AVP game we've played. There's just something so great about arcade games during this time that blew home console games out of the water. But AVP is a classic arcade beat-em-up, with honestly some of the cleanest combat I've ever played in an arcade game. There was just something about the way the animations had this oomph to them that just tickled my brain in the right spot. Add on to that the amount of playable characters from different predators like the Warrior and Hunter Preds to Dutch. It just adds up to a winning formula. Now, this game didn't reinvent anything, but really perfected what made arcade games so damn fun. It's easily an 8 out of 10. It was a banger. Alien vs Predator for the Atari Jaguar, released in the same year as the prior AVP game. They really should have added some subtext to these titles, man. Anything would help. But essentially, this game is a first-person shooter and actually includes 3 different campaigns, from Marine to Predator to Alien. This is also the first game to let us play as a xenomorph, which took long enough, but as an early 90s game, I was actually really surprised with the amount of effort put into this one, with each campaign having its own complete feel, with the Marines being slow, tense, survival-focused, then the Alien one being fast and sneaky, utilizing vents and other places to hide before you strike, to the Predator one focusing on honor. Now, my favorite campaign was the Predator one. I mean, the whole campaign story is just you trying to kill the queen and retrieve her skull. It's just classic Pred stuff that I love. But yeah, this was a really good game. 7 out of 10. So the next game I'm just going to run through quickly. Alien: A Comic Book Adventure, released in 1995 and was a point-and-click game for PCs, where we arrive at an abandoned outpost, which has, of course, been overrun by aliens. And yeah, that's the game. There's also this weird timer where if you take too long doing anything, the game just ends, which makes no sense for a point-and-click game because clicking about, finding things is like the whole point of them. 3 out of 10. Alien Trilogy, released in 1996, and this right here, this is a big hitter. As by the titles, you can probably figure out which movies this game follows, which technically means we aren't done with Alien 3. That movie will not die. But we play as Ellen Ripley once again as we battle our way through what at the time was a massive game with over 30 levels, which by modern standards isn't too crazy, but for the 90s this was big. And unlike other games released at the same time, each level can be beat by just making it to the end. Now, Alien Trilogy had different objectives per level that you had to complete before you could continue, from destroying hives to gathering dog tags to activating lifts, and failing these seemingly easy objectives would mean you would have to play the level all over again from the start. Now, there's no real reason I'm bringing this up. I'm a pretty good gamer and I really didn't have to do this multiple times or anything. Yeah, definitely not. Now, a lot of the other Alien games so far didn't really nail the horror feel of these movies. I mean, most of them were just platformers, but none really scared me. But in this game, there were a few times where I got a bit shook up, especially with the tracker. Now, I said earlier Alien 3 was the first to introduce this mechanic, but Alien Trilogy nailed it. The feeling of walking down a dark hive and you see a life form pop up on the tracker, it honestly scared me the way Dream's face reveals scared 12-year-old girls. There is a lot of combat in this game, so I don't want to compare it too much to Isolation, but the horror parts of this game felt like a really early attempt at what Isolation would perfect years later. This is easily the best game in this video so far, so I'll give Alien Trilogy a nice 9 out of 10. Aliens Online, released in 1998, and by 2026, it is definitely not online. This game's servers got shut down 2 years later in 2000, but you can still play the single player campaign. But for a game like this, it does feel kinda unfair to rate it when the core gameplay was made for multiplayer. But in its prime, it was a team-based early MMO based in the Alien universe, and what I can see, people actually kinda liked it, so for that I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Alien vs Predator, released in 1999 for PCs, and similar to the Jaguar version, there are 3 different campaigns, from Marines to Aliens to Predators. And the big change from other games with the same name, and something we will see a lot coming up, is the fact that while playing as a xenomorph, you're able to climb pretty much every surface, which is such a cool mechanic. With the Alien vs Predator game on the Jaguar, even though there's some differences between the characters, you can clearly tell that the Alien and the Predator gameplay are literally just switched images for their hands. But in this game, you actually feel like a xenomorph hunting its prey. Now, apart from this, the game didn't really do anything we haven't seen, but that change was really nice. 6 out of 10. Alien Resurrection, released in 2000, and similar to Alien Trilogy, this game is a survival horror, but this time leans into the horror way more than the prior, with so far the most atmospheric game in the series. Now, there will be guns. I mean, it's Alien. What would this be without a big old pulse rifle? But the big thing this game is mainly known for is how it pioneered the modern 2-stick controller scheme. So this is kind of a massive game, not just in the history of Alien games, but gaming itself. So again, it deserves its own page in the gaming history books. I had no idea before this video the amount Alien changed gaming forever. Kinda crazy. One of my favorite parts in this game was the facehugger mechanic, where you have to actively be aware of facehuggers. If they jump on you, it's done. Game over. So now it's not just the worry of xenomorphs, but now I'm stressed about the little guys running around. But yeah, this game was pretty good. Again, I've just got to give its rating a bit more for what it did for gaming, so 7 out of 10. Alien Thanatos Encounter, released 1 year later in 2001, and is a top-down single-player shooter released for the Game Boy Color, which has us playing as a bunch of different Marines, who after returning home, receive a distress signal from the ship Thanatos. Not much to say about this game. The gameplay is really basic, but another okay Game Boy game. 5 out of 10. Alien vs Predator 2, released in 2001 and was developed by Monolith Studio, the studio behind Shadow of Mordor. So to say I was expecting a lot from this game, that's an understatement. And did they live up to the hype? Absolutely. We are straight in with some absolute peak here. Back again with the 3 campaigns, from Marine to Alien to Predator, but this time instead of separating them, they are interconnected, which just made the story so much more interesting. A lot of Alien and Predator games, story-wise, are pretty bad and usually end up with a classic, with an alien being on the ship, you must kill it, and the game ends. But this time, with the interconnectedness of it, with the 3 story campaigns overlapping with each other, it just made it so much more interesting. Add on to that the great gameplay for all 3 playable characters, from the horror, the Marines, to the hunt of the Pred. Now, I'm not going to lie, this is probably the best game I've played so far. I just absolutely loved it, so I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It's an absolute banger. Alien vs Predator Extinction, released in 2003, and is the first and last RTS game in this video. Now, when I was getting ready to play this game with no research, an RTS game was probably the last thing I expected this game to be. Now, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy a little RTS now and again, but an RTS in the Alien and Predator universe was just something that I didn't think existed. And one thing that makes it even weirder is this was a console exclusive and never released on PC, which doesn't make sense for an RTS game. I don't care, RTS games belong on PC. It just feels so much better playing over mouse and keyboard. Now, this game is no Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth, but I didn't hate it. Now, it is clunky and the AI can be really dumb, like really fucking dumb, but just the concept alone I think was able to carry this game. And some of the mechanics were actually kind of insane, like when you play as the alien faction, using the queen to lay eggs, which then turn into facehuggers, and after infecting different hosts, you can make a different variant of a xenomorph. It was just pretty cool. Now, like I said, it's no Battle for Middle-earth, which is my favorite RTS game, but it wasn't horrible. 6 out of 10. So next we have a bunch of mobile games, and I'm just gonna bunch them all together because 1, they are all bad, and 2, they're almost impossible to play now. Aliens Unleashed, released in 2003, and was a 2D static screen corridor blaster where we take control of a Colonial Marine trainee who has to fight aliens. Alien vs Predator, released around the same time as the first AVP movie, and is a 2D platformer that lets you control aliens, predators, and humans. Predator, also released in 2004, and takes place around the year 2000, where we play as a highly skilled predator that lands in a South American Alien jungle. And you gotta hunt humans, obviously. And there was also another Alien vs Predator game released in 2004 for mobile, but I can't find anything online about it. Predator Concrete Jungle, released in 2004 and is the first semi-open world Predator game. And let me tell you, I remember playing the hell out of this game as a kid. So there might be some nostalgia bias, but who cares? The game starts off with us playing as a Predator in 1930s New Way City, which obviously is, it's New York. Could they not get the rights for New York? Do you need rights to base a game in New York? I don't know. But during a hunt to kill crime boss Bruno Borgia, we end up injured and forced to activate our ship's self-destruct, leaving a whole bunch of alien tech all over the place, which obviously the other Preds, they weren't a fan of, and then they exile us from the group. Now I know exactly how Punch the Monkey felt. This felt horrible. But after around a century banished to a dangerous world, we are offered the chance to redeem ourselves. And after arriving back to Earth, we see that due to them having the alien technology, 2030 looks like one of those fake Xbox 720 ads. It's just so advanced. Now this game is literally everything you'd want out of a Predator game. A big open world for you to traverse and hunt. Now there is some jank. I mean, the game came out in 2004, but the feeling of running around from rooftop to rooftop as a Predator just made up for that. I love the weapons and tech you can use, from the shoulder blasters to becoming invisible. Just watching your enemies from a distance while invisible was just peak. And the cinematic kills, holy shit. Ripping enemy spines out of their body. I feel like the IGN reviewer Miles Morales, but seriously, this game gives you the exaggerated swagger of a Predator. It was overall just a peak game, and honestly, probably my favorite Predator game ever made. Now there is some nostalgia here and is bias, I know, but to me, this game is a 10 out of 10 just for the memories I have with it. Now I don't know why I was playing this game at 8 years old, but I was, and for that, this game gets a 10 out of 10 for me. Alien vs Predator 3D was a mobile game that when I first saw the title for, I was so hyped. I was straight up ready to buy my cool 3D glasses, but no, it's just a 3D world. This game was actually not awful though, for a mobile game that is, but it was maybe trying to do too much, because this game maxed out at 10 FPS, which is fair for a mobile game trying to do as much as this game was, but goddamn, this was pretty much unplayable. 3 out of 10. Alien Extermination, released in 2006 and is an arcade light gun rail shooter, where we just blast the hell out of waves and waves of aliens. But the one thing that I noticed that was actually pretty cool was the environmental destruction. Being able to just blow shit up was really cool. But yeah, it's an arcade game, so I'll just give it a 6 out of 10. It wasn't bad. Alien vs Predator Requiem, released for the PSP in 2007, and is a first-person shooter where we play as Wolf. Honestly, one of the coolest Predators. He just has so much aura. Now, I don't know why, but there was just something about this game that was able to catch the feelings of a 2000s movie. Like, you know that aesthetic of movies like Alien vs Predator. I really don't know how I can describe it, but the grungy feel of those movies is just great. And somehow this game captures it so well. Now, Alien vs Predator Requiem, the movie, holds a deep place in my heart. It was actually the first Alien or Predator movie I ever saw, so just being able to play through this game was a blast for me. The urban feel of America was captured really well, especially for a PSP game, and gameplay-wise, it's what you'd expect from a Predator game, killing xenomorphs and leaving no evidence behind. But seriously, I had a great time with this one, 7 out of 10. There was also a game called AVP Pred Alien Builder and Game that released around 2007 and was an online browser game, but all I can really find about this one is this random forum from 2008, so I'll just give it a 5 out of 10. Alien vs Predator Combat Evolved, released in 2007 and is a Flash game that was developed by Gameloft, who are now actually a pretty well-known developer, creating games like Asphalt and other pretty well-known stuff, but this is not one of them. It's kind of like an Alien version of Rampage where you just destroy a city. It was just kind of weird. 2 out of 10. Alien vs Predator 2D Requiem was a mobile game that released in 2007, and this really is not a good time for Alien and Predator games. Seriously, from bad mobile games to shitty online Flash games. But trust me, we have some bangers coming up. But this game was pretty bad. Now, I know it's another mobile game, but this was released a few years after the previous mobile games, and I would say they were a lot better than this one. 2 out of 10. Predator the Duel, released in 2007 and is a mobile beat 'em up. Now, there hasn't really been a mobile game that I have enjoyed, but that changed changes right now, as this game was actually a lot of fun. Now, the gameplay is pretty basic. It's just a 2D action beat 'em up, but the story is why I was so invested into this game. We play as a young predator who breaks into a maximum security prison to avenge our forefather by taking down the one and only Dutch. Yeah, that story is so sick. Dutch has scared predators so bad that they're spinning back for round 2. They must literally see this guy as like the Grim Reaper, alone in a jungle with a predator, and he came out alive. Just absolute cinema. But yeah, like I said, the gameplay was okay, but the story is what really stood out to me. 6 out of 10. And next, we have a game that's similar to Concrete Jungle I played so much growing up. Alien vs Predator, released in 2010, and we are finally on next-gen hardware. Well, for the 2010s anyway. The Xbox 360, my beloved. And this game takes full advantage of the new hardware. Now, for modern standards, graphics here aren't crazy or anything, but going from games like Concrete Jungle and earlier compared to this is just night and day. The game is split up into 3 campaigns, very similar to earlier AVP titles, but this time each campaign is much more detailed and so much more varied, with the Marines campaign having us play as a Marine rookie in a full-on fight against the alien infestation, mixed in with a predator who is hunted on the same planet. Then the Alien campaign shows us the dark side of the Whaling Company, with us being a captured xenomorph, being tortured and researched on, which obviously it leads to us breaking out and causing mayhem. To the Predator campaign, having us play as an elite Yautja who is sent to a planet to eliminate Whalen's infestation, all building up to stopping this Pred-Alien hybrid. Each campaign alone could have been its own game, so the fact it's free in this one title is just great bang for your buck in my opinion. But then we have the gameplay. Now, this game is no masterpiece, but I had way too much fun in each of these campaigns than I should have had, with the Marines campaign feeling like this FPS survival horror game where there are a few jumps but also massive set pieces, to feeling unstoppable playing as the Alien and Predator. This game is just so much fun. Now, I may just be bullshitting and being completely blinded by nostalgia, but I seriously loved my time with this game. It's a 9 out of 10 and I don't care if I'm crazy. Predator's the mobile game, released in 2010 and was a tie-in for the movie with the same name, and some say the start of the downfall of Predator movies, and I would agree heavily. But this is a third-person action game, and for a mobile game, it looks really good and plays really well. It has us playing as a predator hunting humans on an alien planet, similar to the movie. It's not great, but it's still kind of fun. 6 out of 10. Predator: The Great Hunt is another mobile game that released the same year as the last, and is also based on the movie. Now, I'm not sure why, but the Predator franchise was obsessed with mobile games. I kind of wish they were more obsessed with making console tie-in games. At least then they'd be a lot more accessible than the mobile versions. But yeah, it's a 2D action platformer, something we've seen around 10 times in this video. 3 out of 10. Alien Infestation, released in 2011 for the DS, and honestly, I never thought I would have liked this game the amount that I did. We've had some good games so far, but this is probably the gem of the video. Before this, I didn't even know this game existed, and now I fully completed it. The game is a Metroidvania-style 2D action platformer, and that is something that I never knew I needed in my life. But holy shit, is this game peak. Who would have thought that Alien in a Metroidvania style would merge so perfectly? Now, the story is pretty basic. We control a squad of Colonial Marines who explore a ship and find aliens. Now, I know the story is legit as basic as an Alien story can be, but the gameplay of this game was just so damn fun that I just didn't care. The game features over 20 playable Marines, and each has a distinct personality and dialogue. But the best thing about them is if a Marine dies, they're gone forever. A kind of permadeath. So you've only got around 20 lives for the whole game, which just made it so damn tense. Losing your favorite character was just straight up heartbreak. As it's a DS game, we now have 2 screens, and this made it so much easier to navigate, with the whole bottom screen being your map. So you could just never get lost, which was really nice for when I first started playing, but the more I got into the game, it did take out the challenge of navigating this world. But that is literally the only negative I can think about this game. It was a blast. 8 out of 10. Next, we have an iconic game for all the wrong reasons. Alien Colonial Marines, released in 2013, and I remember little me as a kid watching YouTube videos about this game. And holy shit, this game was getting memed to death. But this was actually my first time playing it, and I went went into it open-minded, but it's awful. It's really bad. I think it's pretty fair to say that one thing that needs to be good in an Alien game is the AI. I mean, that's why a certain game coming up is regarded as one of the best, not only Alien games, but horror games of all time. But the AI in Colonial Marines is just atrocious, with xenomorphs either just completely ignoring you or getting stuck. And there is a reason in why they are this way, and it's actually hilarious. In the coding of this game, some developer out there misspelled the word Teva, which completely broke the AI. I wish I was joking, but that's the literal reason in why the AI is so damn bad. The most awkward parts to Colonial Marines, though, to me, was how much the developers wanted it to be this over-the-top awesome action game with massive set pieces. But because of how bad the game design is, it just ends up being really awkward. Now, I don't want to shit on this game for 5 minutes, but it was really difficult to find anything redeeming. But I tried, and I tried, and I think I found something that was pretty good in this game, and that was the atmosphere. Now, I'm a pretty big Alien fan, so just being able to walk the halls of the ships from the universe or explore a xenomorph hive was pretty cool. Now, does the graphics help this? No, the game looks shit, even for 2013 standards. But listen, I'm trying to pull some positives here. The gunplay was okay, it's not great, but it did the job. Don't expect anything crazy or advanced. It's just the standard 2013's gunplay, which I do think just lets this game down so much, because the main concept of this game was the gunplay. They didn't go for any horror. They wanted straight up action. And for that to be good, your gunplay has to be good. It has to be satisfying. And they just missed the mark with that so much in this game. There really wasn't anything redeeming. The Alien AI was all over the place. The gunplay was bad. The atmosphere was okay at best. The story was super mid. The game was just bad. And then you take into the amount that this game was delayed, with the initial announcement being in 2007. The game came out in 2013. So imagine the people that were so excited for this, waited all that time, and got this. Yeah, for that, this game deserves a 2 out of 10, just for that. AVP Evolution is another mobile game released in 2013, and again, another mobile game that has an insane story, with the narrative revolving around a blood feud, where the super predators have captured and enslaved the xenomorph queen, using her to destroy the jungle hunter clan. Like, these mobile games may be some slop, but holy shit, their stories absolutely cook. But apart from the insane story, the gameplay is fine. It's just a third-person action game, but I'll give the rating a little boost just for the sick story. So 6 out of 10. Alien Armageddon, released 1 year later in 2014, and is a light gun shooter for arcades, and is actually a sequel to the earlier Alien Extermination. And it brings a lot of the things that made that game fun, with the destructible environments once again making a return, which I just love. I love when you can just blow shit up. Fuck, is that gonna put me on some like FBI watch list?
Video games again.
But yeah, this game was fine. It was an arcade game, keep you occupied for 30 minutes, 6 out of 10. And now for the creme de la creme of Alien games. Alien Isolation, released in 2014, and this right here is a really, really special game. We play as Amanda Ripley, the daughter of Ellen, with the story set around 15 years after the 1979 movie. And our goal is to travel to the Sevastopol station to retrieve the flight recorder of her mother's ship, the Nostromo. And that's where all this kicks off, as the station is in chaos, with panicked survivors, hostile androids, and one lone xenomorph, which is probably my favorite genre of horror game. Get all the hordes of xenomorphs out of here, just me and one alone on the ship. It's just so perfect. There are a lot of great things about this game, but the one thing that everybody talks about is the xenomorph's AI. It is absolutely incredible. The alien literally hunts you, learning your patterns, understanding the way you think, which is literally the only game I've played that's had this. Now, I'm not sure why, but it needs to be used in so many more games. This was literally the scariest gaming experience of my life. Do not check your... Oh, fuck. I never felt safe, always on edge. Oh my god. Just keep, do not stop, please. Oh my god, please go check. And that all comes down to the AI. In particular, the dictator system, where the AI always technically knows where you are, guiding the alien over to your direction, making it so the xenomorph is never too far away. And it just builds so much tension. So your main tool for the game is the motion tracker, which does help, but it also scares the fuck out of me. Every time that shit beeped, I knew the Xeno was right around the corner and I just wanted to die. Add on to that the fact the xenomorph is literally unkillable. It kind of gave me big Mr. X vibes from RE2, where there's this constant threat of death from an unkillable monster. Just a generational game. This is also easily the closest to match the aesthetics of the movie. It really feels like an alien movie. They just did everything perfect, from the atmosphere to the horror to the gameplay. It was just fucking perfect. 10 out of 10, peak. But wait. There's more. While I'm making this video, a sequel to Isolation has been announced. The timing of this is so insane, but we are so back. Aliens vs. Pinball. Released in 2016, and as the title probably lets off, it's just a pinball video game. 4 out of 10. Predator VR, a game that I really wanted to play, but for some reason it is solely in those VR arcades, which is such a shame because the premise of a VR Predator game sounds so good. The game has this rampage mode where you play as a predator and just destroy shit, and then there's this small marine campaign, but that's all that I could really find on this game, which is a shame because I was so excited to play this one. Blackout, released in 2019 and is a mobile game, but not just any mobile game. This right here is the somewhat sequel to the best alien game ever, Isolation, where we once again take up the role of Amanda Ripley. Now, remember the first Alien game all the way back at the start of the video and how I was surprised that they made a Pac-Man clone? Well, Alien Blackout one-ups this because this game is a Five Nights at Freddy's clone. Yeah, I'm not even joking. Now, there is a few differences with you guiding survivors around the ship, but the majority of the gameplay is almost identical to FNAF, with the limited power and doors and cameras using that power. And even though it stole some stuff, listen, this was actually kind of fun. The style fits so well, and I was so surprised to enjoy the game the amount that I did. So 7 out of 10, that may be crazy, but it was good. It was really good. Predator Hunting Grounds, released in 2020 and was a massive game for me during lockdown because I played the hell out of this game, which hurts even more now that this game is so damn dead. Currently, while making this video, there are only like 50 people in the whole world playing this game on Steam. Now, it's not a perfect game, but I don't think it deserves to be as dead as it is. The game is a 4v1 multiplayer shooter where one player gets to play as the Predator while the others play as Marines. It is literally Dead by Daylight, but with Predator. But I love this game so much in 2020, and in my opinion, it's the best Predator gameplay ever. This is how a Predator game should be, with all the gadgets, and just hunting real players was so much fun. Using your cloak to hide right above them was just peak. And then on the Marine sides, it was just terrifying. I was on edge the whole time. The Predator could literally be anywhere, and if you come up against a good Predator, you are done. You are cooked. There's a big skill gap in this game that during 2020 I loved learning about. But yeah, it's so sad that this game is dead now, but I really loved it. 8 out of 10. Such an underrated game. Aliens Fireteam Elite, released 1 year later in 2021, and is a co-op survival game that includes so many variants of xenomorphs. From fast Russian runners to prowlers who focus on ambushing you, to spitters. There's like over 20 different aliens. Add on to that the synthetics. The enemy variety in this game is massive. Gameplay though is really similar to Left 4 Dead, which I love, as Left 4 Dead is one of my favorite games of all time. So this game is right up my alley. Now, I played it alone, but I could tell straight away that playing this game with the boys would be so much fucking fun. You play through a bunch of missions and are able to choose and customize different classes, like a gunner, medic, and recon. Now, I did just play as a demolisher. I was a human turret, just blasting shit away. But there is so many options to change things up. Now, like I said, there's a bunch of levels to play through, with the main story being set around 30 years after the original Alien movie, and they did a really good job in capturing the feel of the movies. Now, obviously, we play as Marines, so you don't really get the horror feel like Isolation, but there were a few times where an ambush alien got me and made me jump. Gameplay wise, the combat is very similar to games like Gears of War, with you ducking and hiding behind cover and blasting out when you're safe, but then the amount of enemies just really did give me Left 4 Dead vibes. And as somebody who loves both of those games, I had an absolute blast. This game touched my brain in the right spot, so I'll give it a nice little 7 out of 10. Alien Dark Descent, released in 2023 and is a a real-time tactical squad-based game. Now, I'm not gonna act like these type of games are my bread and butter, because they're not. But when I was playing Dark Descent, I really tried to enjoy what I was playing. But there's just something about these type of games that really don't click for me. Now, there were a few times where I found something cool that I liked, like the permadeath. So if you mess up, it actually means something, which I'm always a big fan of. I just love consequences to my actions. But apart from that, the gameplay just really didn't do it for me. Now, that's not me saying it's a bad game, because if you like these type of games, you may love it. But for me, it just really didn't click. 5 out of 10. And now on to the last game. Alien Rogue Incursion, released in 2024, and when it initially came out, it was a straight VR game. But later, if you purchase the Evolve version of this game, you can play this game like any other on PC and console. But I wanted to get the real deal, so I played this game in VR because I'm no bitch. Oh fuck! Okay, so this game was terrifying. Now, I'm not the best with horror games, even without the VR stuff, so playing this game was like hell for me. I was literally terrified the entire time. Now, the best way I can describe this game is like a love letter to the movie Aliens, while Isolation was more similar to the original. So this was way more action-focused. Now, there are scary parts, but the amount of aliens that show up take away a bit of that horror compared to Isolation. But as a VR game, this was amazing. Honestly, probably one of the best VR games I've ever played. It looked so beautiful, and the gameplay was so much fun. Being able to hold a pulse rifle and blast xenomorphs away in VR is something special. So I'm gonna give the last game in the video an 8 out of 10. And that's it. Every Alien and Predator game ever made. Now, I know someone will comment talking about Mortal Kombat or Dead by Daylight, but this is just official games. But yeah, this was so much fun. And if you guys enjoyed, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.